The war had ended, but its scars were still fresh on both sides. For years, humans and the people of Lumerus had stood against each other, fighting across the stars with fire and steel. When peace was finally declared, many did not believe it would last. Still, the treaty was signed, and to show good faith, both sides exchanged guards to serve within each other's courts. That was how Aaron, a young soldier from Earth, found himself walking through the shining halls of the Lumrian Palace. The palace was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its walls shimmered with silver stone that seemed to glow faintly in the light. Tall windows let in the twin suns, casting soft beams over wide corridors lined with tapestries that told stories of the Lumrian people. The air smelled faintly of flowers, carried in by the breeze from the gardens outside. Every step he took reminded him that he was far from home, standing in a place that still felt strange and otherworldly. Aaron had been trained for duty, not comfort. His job was simple: stand watch, follow orders, and represent humanity with honor. Yet deep inside, he carried the weight of uncertainty. He knew many of the Lumrian guards did not welcome his presence. Their sharp glances, their whispered words in a language he barely understood, told him that he was seen as an outsider. Still, he did his best. Days turned into weeks, and his routine remained the same. Guard the halls, patrol the gardens, and keep his eyes sharp. He rarely spoke, for he did not wish to draw more attention than he already did. Yet his silence often gave him time to notice things others overlooked. He watched how the palace staff moved with quiet discipline, how the guards stood with pride, and how the royal family carried themselves with grace. It was during one of his garden posts that he first saw her. The princess. Her name was Elira, and she was unlike the pictures Aaron had seen in old reports. She was tall, with silver hair that fell like a river down her back, and eyes that seemed to hold both wisdom and curiosity. Her presence carried calm strength, and when she walked, the flowers seemed to bow to her as though she were part of the garden itself. Aaron kept his eyes forward, as any soldier should, but he could not help stealing small glances. She often came to the gardens alone, carrying a book or simply walking in silence. Her face was serene, but her gaze was sharp, as though she noticed details others missed. At first, Aaron thought she paid him no mind. To her, he was just another guard. Yet one day, as she passed near him, she slowed her steps and looked his way. "You are human, yes?" she asked, her voice soft yet clear. Aaron straightened, surprised she had spoken to him. "Yes, princess," he answered carefully. She studied him for a moment, her eyes curious rather than cold. "Do you miss your home?" The question struck him. Few had ever asked him such a thing since he arrived. "I do," he admitted. "But I am here to serve with honor." Her lips curved into a small smile. A noble answer. She walked on, leaving Aaron with a heart that beat faster than he expected. From that day, their paths crossed more often. Whenever she visited the gardens, she would pause to ask him a question. Sometimes it was simple about the weather, about his training, or about human customs. Other times, her questions reached deeper. "What do humans value most?" she asked one evening as the sun set behind the palace walls. Aaron thought for a moment before answering. "Family. Friendship. The bonds we share." Her eyes softened. "We are not so different, then." Her words stayed with him. In the weeks that followed, their conversations grew longer. She seemed genuinely interested in his stories of Earth, of green forests, blue oceans, and cities filled with lights. In return, she told him about Lumerus, its traditions, its ancient songs, and the beauty of the twin moons that rose each night. Aaron never forgot his duty, yet he found himself waiting for those quiet moments when she appeared. There was something comforting in her presence, something that made the foreign palace feel a little less distant. But not everyone saw it that way. Other guards watched with suspicion when Elira spoke to him. Aaron could feel their stares burning into his back, though none dared interrupt a princess. Still, he knew whispers traveled fast in royal halls. A human soldier and a princess speaking often was bound to stir unease. Yet Elira did not seem to care. One night, when the gardens were lit by the glow of lanterns, she stood near a fountain, watching the water sparkle. Aaron stood at his post, trying to remain still, but she turned to him with a gentle expression. "Do you find this place beautiful?" she asked. "Yes," Aaron said honestly. "But beauty means little without peace." Her gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. "You speak like one who has seen too much war." He looked down, his memories heavy with images of battle. "I have," he admitted quietly. She said no more, but her eyes held a kindness that needed no words. From that moment, Aaron felt a bond forming, silent, fragile, yet real. He did not know where it would lead, nor did he dare dream too far. Yet when he closed his eyes at night, the memory of her silver hair, her curious voice, and her gentle smile followed him. In a palace where he was a stranger, she made him feel seen. And though he could never say it aloud, in the stillness of his heart, he whispered a thought that scared and comforted him at once. He wished she could be his. Aaron's duty in the palace continued as days turned into weeks, yet something inside him had shifted. He was still a soldier, still an outsider among the Lumrians, but the presence of Princess Elira gave his days a quiet brightness. Each time she came to the gardens, he found himself standing a little straighter, listening more carefully, and speaking with words chosen not from duty but from sincerity. Their exchanges were never long, never reckless, yet in those small fragments of conversation, something unspoken began to grow. One afternoon, the sun cast golden light over the palace as Elira approached the garden path. She carried a book in her hand, bound in silver with strange markings across its cover. Aaron kept his eyes forward, but she stopped near him. "Do you read, Aaron?" she asked gently. "Yes, Princess," he replied. "Though most of my books were about history or training." She opened her book and held it for him to see. "These are poems of Lumerus. Words written by our ancestors to describe the stars, the rivers, and the bonds between hearts." Aaron nodded, though he could not read the script. The letters looked like flowing streams, too elegant for his human eyes to follow. She seemed to notice his struggle and smiled softly. "Would you like me to read one to you?" she asked. He hesitated. "If it pleases you, Princess." Her voice took on a rhythm as she read in her language, the words flowing like a song. Though Aaron did not understand the meaning, he felt the weight of the emotions within them. When she finished, she translated the final line. "It says, even in silence, a bond stronger than words can grow." Aaron felt a quiet stirring in his chest. He bowed slightly. "It is beautiful." Elira closed the book and looked at him with calm eyes. "Do humans write such things?" "Yes," he answered. "Many write of love, of longing, and of dreams." Her gaze lingered for a moment, then she walked on, leaving him with thoughts that would not leave his mind. The next few days followed a pattern. Elira would come to the gardens, sometimes with her book, sometimes with questions. Aaron, though guarded, found himself speaking more freely with her than he had with anyone since arriving. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the palace walls, Elira stood by the fountain again. The water sparkled under the silver light. She turned to Aaron and asked, "Tell me of your world's skies." Aaron thought back to Earth. Blue in the day, filled with clouds that drift slowly. At night, black and endless, with stars shining like scattered fire. Her lips curved with interest. "And the oceans?" "Vast and deep," Aaron said softly. "Endless waves that roar and whisper, depending on the wind." She closed her eyes, as though she could imagine the sights. "Your world sounds alive." "It is," Aaron agreed. "And I hope one day peace will allow you to see it." Her eyes opened, and she looked at him with a kind of wonder. "Perhaps one day I will." That night, Aaron stood longer than usual by the fountain, even after she had left. He felt something strange, something both comforting and dangerous. She was a princess, and he was a simple soldier. Yet each word they shared built a bridge he could not step away from. Not everyone was blind to this change. The other guards began to notice how often Elira spoke with him. Their glances grew sharper, and their whispers carried more weight. One, a tall Lumrian named Darren, stopped near Aaron during a change of watch. "You stand too close to her," Darren muttered in a low voice. "Remember your place, human." Aaron met his eyes calmly but said nothing. He knew that answering would only fuel the flames. Still, inside, he felt the sting of truth. He was not blind to how others viewed him. Yet the princess never showed concern. She treated him no differently when others were near. If anything, her calm presence gave him strength to endure the stares. One day, as rain fell lightly over the gardens, Elira walked without her usual attendants. The drops sparkled on her silver hair as she stopped beneath a tall tree. Aaron stood nearby, his armor damp, yet he did not move. "Do humans enjoy the rain?" she asked. "Yes," Aaron replied. "Some see it as a gift. It brings life to the earth." She lifted her face to the sky, letting the drops fall gently upon her skin. "Then perhaps today is a gift." Aaron watched her, struck by the simple beauty of the moment. The palace, the guards, the weight of war all seemed distant as she stood in the rain with such peace. For the first time since arriving, he felt as though he belonged, even if only in that single breath of time. Days passed, and their bond grew silently. They never spoke of it, never named it, yet it was there in the way she lingered near him, in the way he listened more than he should, and in the quiet comfort they found in each other's company. Late one evening, as the halls grew quiet, Elira stopped near Aaron's post. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "You remind me of the poems," she said softly. Aaron looked at her with surprise. "In what way, princess?" "In the way silence can still speak," she replied. She did not wait for his answer, walking away with graceful steps, leaving him with words that filled his heart with both hope and fear. Aaron returned to his quarters that night with a mind full of questions. He knew his duty. He knew the boundaries of his station. Yet the bond between them was real, growing stronger with each passing day. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. In the quiet, he admitted to himself what he could not say aloud. The princess had become more than a figure of royalty. She had become a light in his world, a bond that silence could no longer contain. And though the halls of the palace whispered against it, Aaron could not stop his heart from whispering the truth. He wished their silent bond could last forever. The palace gardens were quiet that night. The twin moons floated high in the sky, casting silver light across the flowers and fountains. Aaron stood at his usual post, the cool air brushing against his armor, carrying with it the faint fragrance of blossoms. He had grown used to these nights, yet this one felt different. Something in his heart was restless, as if waiting for a moment he could not name. The sound of soft footsteps reached him, and he turned his head slightly. Princess Elira walked along the path, her silver hair catching the moonlight. She wore a simple robe, not the grand garments of the court, and in the quiet of the night she looked less like a princess and more like someone seeking peace. She stopped by the fountain, her eyes watching the water ripple under the moon's glow. Aaron straightened, bowing his head in respect. "Good evening, Princess," he said. Her gaze shifted to him, and a gentle smile touched her lips. "Good evening, Aaron. Do you never tire of standing here?" He shook his head. "It is my duty. And duty gives me purpose." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "But does duty give you joy?" The question caught him off guard. Few had ever asked such a thing. He hesitated before answering. "It gives me peace. Joy is harder to find." Elira stepped closer to the fountain, her reflection shimmering in the water. For a moment she was silent, as though weighing her words. Then she spoke softly. "Even a soldier deserves joy." Her words lingered in the air, sinking deep into him. He wanted to reply, but his voice caught in his throat. He stood still, watching her, feeling the quiet weight of the night press upon them both. Minutes passed, broken only by the sound of the fountain. Elira turned to him again. "Tell me, Aaron. What would bring you joy?" Aaron looked at her, at the calm strength in her eyes, at the kindness that had drawn him closer each day. His heart pounded, louder than the fountain's water, louder than his own reason. He knew he should answer with caution, speak of simple things, safe things. Yet the truth pressed against him, begging to be spoken. He lowered his voice, almost a whisper. "I wish you could be mine." The words left him before he could take them back. For a heartbeat, silence fell heavier than stone. His chest tightened with fear, for he knew what he had done. A soldier speaking such words to a princess was reckless, perhaps even unforgivable. But then Elira's lips curved into a smile. Not a mocking smile, not one of dismissal, but a warm, gentle smile that reached her eyes. "Then you shall," she said softly. Aaron froze. He wondered if he had heard her wrong, if his mind had twisted her words into the dream he secretly carried. But her gaze was steady, her voice firm yet tender. She had meant every syllable. His breath caught in his chest. "Princess, I do not understand." "There is nothing to misunderstand," Elira said. She stepped closer, the silver light of the moons casting a glow around her. "You have been honest with me. You have shown me your heart, even when you tried to hide it. I have seen your courage, your kindness, and your strength. Do you think I would not notice?" Aaron bowed his head, his heart racing. "But I am only a soldier. I am human, not of your world. The court would never allow it." Elira's eyes softened. "The court does not rule my heart. I do." Her words carried a quiet power, stronger than any command he had ever received. For a moment, he forgot the palace, the guards, the whispers that haunted him. There was only her, standing before him beneath the moons, offering him something he had never dared hope for. Yet fear tugged at him still. "If others hear of this, it may bring trouble for you." She shook her head gently. "Let them talk. Let them whisper. They cannot break what is true." Aaron lifted his eyes to meet hers. The bond they had built in silence, through shared questions and quiet moments, now stood revealed. It was no longer unspoken. It was alive, breathing between them. They stood like that for a while, the night holding them in its embrace. Neither spoke further, for words seemed too small. At last, Elira stepped back, her smile lingering. "You are brave, Aaron. Not only in battle, but in heart. Do not hide it from me again." He bowed, his chest filled with both fear and joy. "As you wish, princess." She gave him one last look before walking down the path, her silver hair flowing like a river behind her. Aaron watched until she disappeared into the shadows of the palace. When she was gone, he let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. His mind spun with disbelief, yet his heart burned with hope. The words he had whispered, words he thought would never be heard, had been answered with kindness and acceptance. Still, he knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead would not be simple. The eyes of the court were sharp, and whispers already stirred against him. Yet now he carried a truth that no one could take from him. In the quiet of the night, Aaron touched his chest where his heart beat strong. He remembered her smile, her words, her promise. Then he whispered again, though no one could hear. "I wish you could be mine." And this time, he knew he was no longer wishing alone. The garden that had once been a sanctuary now felt heavier with each passing day. After that night beneath the twin moons, Aaron carried Elira's words like a flame inside his heart. "Then you shall." The memory of her smile gave him strength, but it also brought fear. For the palace was not blind. The guards had always watched him with suspicion, but now their eyes lingered longer. Whispers grew sharper, spreading like wind through the halls. Servants exchanged glances when the princess and the human spoke. Even the nobles began to mutter behind closed doors. Aaron could feel the change. Where once there was quiet disdain, now there was open hostility. He did not need to hear their words to know what they thought. A soldier of earth was unworthy of a Lumrian princess. One morning, while standing watch near the council chamber, Aaron overheard two nobles speaking in hushed voices. "It is shameful," one said, his tone filled with anger. "Our princess lowers herself by speaking to that outsider. The king and queen must put an end to it," the other replied. "If not, the court will lose respect." Their voices faded as they entered the chamber, but the words stayed in Aaron's chest like a blade. That night, when Elira walked through the gardens, Aaron could not stop the worry in his voice. "Princess, you must be careful. Others are watching. They disapprove." Elira turned to him, calm as ever. "Let them disapprove. Their eyes do not command my heart." He shook his head. "But their anger may fall on you. I cannot allow that." She stepped closer, her voice soft yet steady. "And I cannot allow fear to steal what is true." "Do you wish to turn away from me, Aaron?" The question struck deep. He looked into her eyes, silver in the moonlight, and felt the weight of his own answer. "No, princess. Never." She smiled faintly. "Then we endure together." Her words gave him strength, but the days ahead only grew harder. The guards tested him, pushing against him with harsh words and sharper drills. Darren, the tall Lumrian who had always glared at him, finally spoke openly during training. "You think yourself worthy because the princess shows you kindness," Darren said, circling him with a wooden staff. "But you are nothing more than a guest in this palace. A guest who has overstayed." Aaron gripped his own staff, holding his ground. "I ask for no favor, only to serve with honor." "Honor?" Darren sneered. "Then prove it." The training session turned into a contest. Staffs clashed, strikes echoed, and the other guards watched with cold eyes. Aaron fought with discipline, not aggression, blocking each blow with steady focus. When Eren's strikes grew reckless, Eren stepped aside and let him fall hard against the ground. The other guards muttered, but Eren did not raise his weapon again. He simply offered a hand, which Eren slapped away. "You will regret this," Eren growled, standing with shame burning in his eyes. Eren walked away, but he knew the hostility had deepened. Days later, whispers reached even the throne. The king and queen summoned Elira, their faces lined with concern. Eren was not present, but he heard the outcome from a servant who pitied him. The rulers had warned their daughter, urging her to distance herself from the human. They spoke of tradition, of duty, of the eyes of the people. Elira listened, but she did not bend. She left the chamber with her head high, her decision unchanged. That evening, she came to Eren in the gardens once more. Her voice carried both strength and sorrow. "My parents fear what others will say," she told him. "They ask me to turn away from you." Eren felt his chest tighten. "And what do you say, princess?" She looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "I say my heart is my own. I will not turn away." Eren bowed his head, torn between relief and guilt. "You should not suffer because of me." "Do you think love comes without struggle?" she asked gently. "It is in struggle that it proves its worth." Her words lit a fire within him, yet they also deepened his resolve. If she was willing to face the weight of her world, then he must be ready to stand beside her no matter the cost. But the court was not done testing them. At a grand feast held to honor the peace between their peoples, Eren was placed among the guards at the edge of the hall. From his post he watched Elira seated at the high table, her grace shining brighter than the jewels around her. Nobles surrounded her, speaking with false smiles, but Eren noticed how their eyes held judgment. Halfway through the feast, one bold noble raised his voice. "Princess Elira," he said, lifting a cup of wine. "Tell us, is it true you favor the company of a human soldier more than that of your own people?" The hall grew silent. All eyes turned to her. Eren's grip on his spear tightened, though he knew he could do nothing. Elira did not falter. She set her cup down and met the noble's gaze. "It is true that I speak with him often. And it is true that I respect him more than those who speak without honor." Gasps spread through the hall. The noble's face burned with shame, but Elira did not look away. Eren's heart swelled with pride, but he also knew the storm that would follow. She had defended him openly, before the court itself. There would be no hiding now. That night, as the feast ended and the hall emptied, Elira found Eren near the gates. "They will fight harder against us now," she said quietly. "Then I will fight with you," he answered. Her smile was small but full of strength. "Then we are not alone." The struggle had begun, sharper and louder than before, but neither would bend. Eren knew the path ahead would be filled with trials, yet as long as they stood together, he believed they could endure. And deep within, he carried the memory of her words by the fountain, words that had lit the fire of his resolve. Even in the face of struggle, he wished she could be his. And now, for the first time, he believed it might truly be possible. The palace was never a place of quiet for long. After the feast where Princess Elira had spoken boldly in Eren's defense, the air in the court grew heavier with tension. Whispers turned to anger, and anger soon spread beyond the walls. Some nobles feared the princess's heart would lead the kingdom into shame. Others, more cautious, warned that her words might weaken the fragile peace between humans and Lumrians. Eren felt the change in every glance. Where once there was cold suspicion, now there was open hostility. Guards no longer hid their disdain. Some would shove him during training, others would mock him with sharp words. Yet he did not strike back. His silence was not weakness but control, for he knew any misstep could be used against him. Elira noticed his struggle. One evening, she met him in the gardens as the twin moons rose above the palace walls. "They are pressing harder against you," she said quietly, her silver eyes filled with concern. Aaron bowed his head. "It does not matter. My duty is to endure." "But it matters to me," she replied, stepping closer. "I see their cruelty. I see their fear. But I also see your strength, and it only confirms what I already know." Aaron lifted his eyes, his voice low. "And what do you know, princess?" She held his gaze firmly. "That you are worthy." Her words gave him the strength to stand taller, but fate had prepared a harsher trial. It began on a storm-filled night when the palace shook with alarm. Shouts echoed through the corridors, and guards rushed to their posts. Rebels from a rival world had infiltrated the outer walls, hoping to strike at the royal family and shatter the fragile peace. Aaron's instincts took over. He gripped his spear and followed the cries toward the inner courtyard, where smoke and sparks filled the air. Shadows moved swiftly, blades flashing under the lightning. The palace guards clashed with the intruders, but confusion spread quickly. The rebels were fierce, trained for assassination rather than open battle. Their goal was clear: reach the royal chambers. Aaron's eyes searched the chaos, and his heart froze when he saw Elira standing on the balcony above. She had been caught unguarded, her attendants scattered in fear. A group of rebels climbed toward her with blades drawn. Without thought, Aaron charged. He leapt into the fray, blocking a rebel's strike with the shaft of his spear. The impact rattled his arms, but he pushed forward, driving the enemy back with fierce precision. His training as a soldier of earth, honed in years of war, now showed its worth. He fought not only with strength but with wit. While the palace guards clashed head-on, Aaron moved with speed and cunning, using the courtyard's pillars and steps to outmaneuver his foes. One rebel swung high, but Aaron ducked low and swept his legs, sending him crashing to the stones. Another lunged from behind, but Aaron spun, catching the strike on his spear and driving his elbow into the attacker's chest. Still, more came. "Aaron!" Elira cried from the balcony, fear lacing her voice. "I will not let them reach you," he shouted, his voice firm. The rebels pressed harder, but Aaron refused to yield. Step by step, he pushed them back from the stairs. His armor bore scratches, his arms ached, yet his resolve burned brighter than the storm above. At last, palace reinforcements arrived. The remaining rebels, realizing their plan had failed, tried to retreat, but Aaron cut off their path. With the other guards beside him, they drove the intruders from the courtyard until only silence remained. The rain poured harder, washing the blood from the stones. Elira rushed down the stairs, her robe trailing behind her. She stopped before Aaron, her eyes wide with both fear and relief. "You saved me," she whispered. Aaron stood tall, though his body was weary. "I swore to protect this palace. And I swore to protect you." She placed a hand lightly on his arm, her voice trembling with sincerity. "You did more than protect me. You proved to them all who you are." The guards who had once mocked him now looked upon him with silence. Some with respect, others with shame. For they had seen with their own eyes the courage of the human they had doubted. Word of the attack spread quickly through the court. By morning, all knew the truth: when danger struck, it was Aaron who had stood between the princess and death. The king himself summoned him to the throne hall. The nobles gathered, their eyes sharp as always, but this time a quiet unease hung in the air. The king's voice echoed through the chamber. Aaron of Earth, it is said you saved my daughter from death at great risk to your own life. Is this true? Aaron bowed his head. I did what was my duty, my king. Nothing more. The queen, seated beside the king, studied him with narrowed eyes. And yet many guards were present, yet it was you who reached her first. Why? Aaron's voice was calm. Because I could not allow harm to touch her. No matter the cost. A murmur spread through the chamber. Some nobles frowned, others exchanged uncertain looks. Elira, standing at the side of the hall, spoke firmly. He speaks the truth. It was Aaron who saved me, when others could not. His courage should not be questioned but honored. The hall fell silent. The weight of her words, spoken before all, left no room for denial. The king leaned back in his throne, his expression unreadable. At last he spoke. Your actions have not gone unnoticed, Aaron. You have proven yourself in trial. Whatever doubts remain, none may deny your courage. Aaron bowed deeply, though his heart still carried the storm of uncertainty. He had survived the trial, but he knew the struggle was far from over. Respect could not erase years of distrust, nor silence the whispers of those who feared him. Yet when he lifted his eyes, he saw Elira watching him with pride. That alone was enough. Later that night, as the palace grew quiet again, Elira met him once more in the gardens. You faced death and did not falter, she said softly. Aaron shook his head. I only did what any soldier should. No, she said firmly. You did what only one who truly cares would do. Her words filled him with warmth stronger than any praise. He realized then that the trial had not only proven his worth to the court but had also deepened the bond between them. As the twin moons rose again, Aaron looked at her and thought of the whisper he had spoken before. Now, after facing fire and steel, it felt less like a dream and more like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. The trial of steel and storm had passed, but its echoes lingered in every corridor of the palace. Word spread quickly that it had been Aaron, the human soldier, who had stood against the rebels when others faltered. No servant, no guard, no noble could deny what they had seen. The whispers that once carried scorn now carried uncertainty, and some even carried reluctant respect. Yet respect was not the same as acceptance. The nobles remained restless. Some argued that Aaron's bravery was only luck, that his heart should not be trusted. Others feared that the princess's closeness to him would break traditions that had lasted for centuries. The court was divided, torn between old pride and the undeniable truth of what had happened. Aaron felt the change but did not celebrate it. He knew too well that one act of courage was not enough to erase generations of distrust. Still, the memory of Elira's voice gave him strength. She had defended him before all, not with hesitation but with pride. That was something no one could take from him. In the days that followed, Elira visited the gardens more openly. Where once she had spoken to him in soft tones, now she walked with him in plain sight. She asked him about his training, about his world, and about his dreams. And though guards and servants passed nearby, she did not lower her voice. One afternoon, as the twin suns drifted across the sky, Elira stopped beneath the shade of a tall silver tree. Aaron, do you see what has changed? She asked. He glanced around. A group of servants walked past, their eyes curious but not cruel. Two guards stood nearby, watching but silent. They look, but they no longer whisper, he said quietly. Elira smiled. That is because they are beginning to see what I see. Aaron shook his head, though his heart warmed. What you see, princess, may not be what they ever will. Then let them learn slowly, she replied with calm certainty. Truth does not need to be rushed. It only needs to endure. Her words carried a wisdom beyond her years, and Aaron found himself wondering how he had once thought her distant, unreachable. Now she felt closer than anyone he had ever known. The change reached even the throne. The king and queen could not ignore the voices of their people, nor the courage of the man who had saved their daughter. One evening, Aaron was summoned to the great hall. He walked with steady steps, though his chest carried the weight of uncertainty. The hall was filled with nobles, their robes gleaming with jewels, their eyes sharp as blades. Elira stood near her parents, her presence calm and firm. The king's voice filled the hall. Aaron of Earth, you have proven your courage in battle. You have defended not only this palace but my daughter herself. For this, our people owe you a debt. Aaron bowed deeply. I acted only as duty commanded, my king. The queen leaned forward, her eyes keen. And yet your bond with Elira has grown beyond duty. This court cannot pretend it does not exist. Speak truthfully, Aaron. What is it you seek? The hall fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. Aaron felt the weight of their stares, yet he remembered Elira's words, do not hide it from me again. Lifting his head, he spoke clearly. I seek nothing but the right to stand by her side. If that is more than I deserve, then I ask for nothing at all. But my heart belongs to her, and that truth cannot be denied. Gasps rippled through the nobles. Some frowned in outrage, others whispered in disbelief. But Elira stepped forward before anyone else could speak. And my heart belongs to him, she said firmly. He is not only a soldier of earth. He is a man of honor, and I will not turn from him. The hall trembled with voices, nobles shouting in protest, others demanding silence. The king raised his hand, and all grew quiet. His face was unreadable as he looked from his daughter to Aaron. At last he spoke. This is no small matter. Our world has long guarded its traditions. To allow such a bond is to break what has stood for centuries. Elira did not waver. Perhaps some traditions deserve to be broken. The king's eyes narrowed, but there was no anger in them, only the weight of a ruler facing change. He turned to Aaron. You have earned respect, but respect is not yet acceptance. To walk beside my daughter, you must be more than a soldier. You must prove that your presence strengthens not only her heart but this kingdom itself. Aaron bowed his head. Then give me that chance, my king. The queen's gaze softened slightly, though her voice remained firm. Your chance begins now. Walk this palace not as an outsider but as one of us. Show them that you are worthy, not with words, but with deeds. And so Aaron's days changed once more. No longer was he only a guard at the edge of the hall. He was called to train with the palace guards as an equal. He was sent on missions within the city, protecting both nobles and commoners. Slowly, he became a figure seen not only as Elira's shadow but as a defender of the people. At first, suspicion remained. Some muttered when he passed, others turned away in scorn. But when bandits struck the trade roads, it was Aaron who led the defense. When fire spread in the lower quarter, it was Aaron who carried children from the smoke. Each act chipped away at the wall between him and the people. Through it all, Elira remained by his side, her quiet strength giving him courage. She walked openly with him in the gardens, no longer caring for whispers. When nobles confronted her, she answered with grace but did not bend. Her voice was steady, her heart unshaken. One evening, as the palace bells rang to mark the end of day, Aaron stood with Elira on the balcony. The city stretched out below, its lights glowing like stars. "They are beginning to accept you," Elira said softly. "Not all," Aaron replied. "Not yet," she corrected. "But they will." He looked at her, his heart steady. "And if they do not?" She smiled, her silver hair catching the moonlight. "Then I will still choose you." In that moment, Aaron realized the truth. Acceptance was not only about the court, the nobles, or the people. It was about the bond they shared, a bond that no voice of doubt could silence. And so, as the night settled over the palace, Aaron felt a peace he had never known before. The path ahead would still hold trials, but for the first time, he believed they could walk it together, not as guard and princess, not as human and Lumrian, but as two hearts bound by choice. The palace no longer felt like a prison of suspicion. Where once every corridor carried whispers of distrust, now there was a softer air, as if the walls themselves had grown weary of old fears. Aaron walked not as an intruder but as a man slowly carving his place among them. Yet though respect grew day by day, the shadow of doubt had not vanished. The nobles who clung to tradition gathered often, their voices sharp with warnings. "If the princess binds herself to him," they muttered, "our bloodline will be stained, our customs broken." Some spoke of rebellion, others of exile. Though their words held no open power, their presence was a weight pressing on the court. Elira knew of their unrest. She met Aaron in the gardens late one evening, where the moonlight bathed the silver leaves in gentle light. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed the storm in her heart. "They will not stop," she said. "Every step we take forward, they will pull against us. They would rather cling to old fears than allow even a glimpse of change." Aaron looked at her steadily. "Then let them pull. We will not break." She smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in her gaze. "I fear it may come to more than words. They may try again, as the rebels did. They may strike not only at you but at me, and at my family." Aaron's voice was steady. "Then let them come. I will not fail you." Her hand brushed against his arm, light but firm. "And if they force a choice? Between me and your place here?" He did not hesitate. "I already made that choice. It is you." The bond between them deepened with every passing day, but destiny was not done testing them. One dawn, as the bells rang to wake the palace, a messenger arrived breathless at the gates. The rival world whose rebels had attacked before now moved openly. Their fleets gathered in the skies, their warriors preparing for war. The fragile peace the king had tried to protect was breaking. The court fell into panic. Nobles shouted, commanders rushed to prepare defenses, and fear swept through the city. In the great hall, the king spoke with grim weight. "They come not only for our lands but for the weakness they believe they see in us. If we falter now, we lose all." Elira stood tall beside him. "Then we do not falter." The queen turned to Aaron. "You have faced their blades before. You know their ways better than most. What counsel do you give?" Aaron bowed. "They believe us divided. That is their strength. We must show them unity. If the people see us stand as one, they will not fall to fear. And if the enemy sees us strong, they will not find us weak." The king studied him long, then gave a single nod. "Then you will lead, not as a guard, but as a commander beside our generals. Let the enemy see the courage that saved my daughter. Let them see that it is not only hers, but ours." The days that followed were filled with preparation. The city armed itself, walls strengthened, banners raised. And for the first time, Aaron walked not as a stranger but as a leader. Men and women of the city saluted him, some hesitantly, others with pride. Word spread of his deeds, of the fire he carried in battle, of the bond he shared with the princess. On the eve of battle, Aaron stood with Elira atop the highest balcony. The skies were heavy with clouds, and the stars were hidden. Below, the city glowed with torches, each flame a symbol of hope. "You should not be here on the front lines," Aaron said softly. Elira shook her head. "And hide behind walls while you fight for my people? No. If they see me stand beside you, they will know our bond is not weakness but strength." He looked at her, and for a moment the weight of war faded. "If tomorrow is the end, I have no regret. For I have found you." Her hand reached for his, fingers entwining with his. "Then let tomorrow be not an end, but a beginning." The next day dawned with thunder. The enemy fleet descended, their warships blotting out the skies. The ground shook with their march. The people of the city watched with fear, but above the walls stood their defenders, and among them, Aaron and Elira. The battle came like a storm. Blades clashed, fire filled the sky, and the ground trembled with the weight of war. Aaron fought at the front, his spear flashing with unyielding strength. By his side, Elira stood with her guards, her voice carrying through the chaos, rallying her people with courage. Where Aaron struck, the line held. Where Elira spoke, the people found strength. Together, they turned fear into fire. The enemy pressed hard, but unity burned stronger than doubt. At last, as the sun broke through the clouds, the rival forces faltered. Their strength was broken, their will shattered. The field fell silent but for the cries of victory. The city stood, scarred but unbroken. That evening, as the bells of triumph rang, the people gathered in the great square. The king and queen appeared before them, Elira at their side, and beside her, Aaron. The voices of the crowd rose, not in whispers of doubt but in shouts of praise. The king raised his hand. "This day we have seen the courage of a man not born of our world, but bound to it by heart. He stood with us, fought with us, and proved that honor has no bloodline. Let no one deny it again." The queen's voice followed, strong and clear. "And if his heart is bound to my daughters, then so be it. For strength has many forms, and theirs is one we will honor." The crowd erupted in cheers. For the first time, Aaron felt not the eyes of suspicion but the eyes of acceptance. Later, when the square grew quiet and the stars returned to the sky, Aaron stood with Elira once more in the gardens. The air was cool, the silver leaves whispering softly in the night. "It is over," Elira said. "For now," Aaron replied. "But the future will hold its own battles." She stepped closer, her voice tender. "Then promise me this. Whatever battles come, you will not walk them alone." He looked into her eyes, steady and certain. "I promise. From this night, and for all nights to come." And under the stars, with the city resting in peace and the future theirs to shape, Aaron and Elira sealed the bond not only of hearts but of worlds. It was the promise of a new beginning.